Reverend child of the Unification Church, I guess. And the name
The
of
new
my...
future of world religions. The new future.
That's right.
Come on in. You know why this is such a quiet crowd? I'm used to holding mixers here, business mixers. We serve wine. Put a little wine in everybody, you know, and that livens them up a little bit. Maybe they do a little more mixing, a little more talking. Well, we're a little sedate here, especially after that great meditation you guys just went through.
Yeah, a lot of us are still in samadhi state.
Yeah. So you're gonna have to segue out of that state. Come on in, have a seat. How long are you prepared to go?
Well, till 6.
6:15. Take questions.
Yeah.
6:10ish.
Okay.
Take questions at 6. Okay, here we go. This is a great subject. This is called Before We Begin. No? Okay, no. This is actually from Rev.Stephen Child, The New Future of World Religions. This is very important. There's more unity, more collaboration, and more communication amongst all kinds of groups that have not talked to each other before. So are you going to enlighten us on that? And because this is the dawning of the age of... Oh no, this is a new millennium here. Reverend Stephen Child. Yay!
We needed that clap to get out of the samadhi state, right? She didn't mention how you get out of that. Turn on the light, right? Yeah, well, thanks very much. I'm also kind of the annoying camera person who keeps getting in your way. But on the positive side, I want to upload all these things so everybody can see these wonderful presentations that we've had. I'll have to first learn how to upload, and then I will upload them. But at least we know it's in the camera, so we got that far. So before we begin, as we know, we've been talking about the Mayan calendar, but we live in the age of the internet, and so breaking news came of a new Mayan calendar. And actually I saw this in the back room. Okay, sorry, that's on the lighter note. Can you read that? Want a beer? Well, I'm working on this calendar, but I guess if I don't finish it, it won't be the end of the world. Okay, too Mayan, guys, sorry. Okay, my serious topic is the new future. That's in the break room. So we posted that in the break room. My topic is the new future of world religions. Well, there's no sound there, but anyway. I really thought of David Mitchell's presentation with the light and the...
Is there sound?
Yeah, there's
Some people.
Yes.
So what can we do, given
sorry.
all of this information, what can we do so that we can
Well, it's okay. You just turn it
do
off.
more than just...
Keep it off.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Okay. David Mitchell had a wonderful presentation about the galaxy and where we are and the light. So also, what people were saying on the radio this morning when we were driving in, the end of the world is at hand. And actually on UNR campus, the guy was standing on a chair, and he had that sign. So, okay. However, here's a new thought. The end of the world is at hand for all religions. But this, you got to kind of wrap your mind around this. The founder of my church, Sun Myung Moon, actually came to America 38 years ago to Madison Square Garden, and he said in a speech, called The New Future of Christianity, he said that the end of the world is at hand for all religions. So, what does that mean? I better keep going before I get too much trouble. The end of the world is at hand for all religions, forming the greatest opportunity for unprecedented spiritual awakening. He also said that it formed the greatest opportunity in any man or any woman's lifetime, which is knocking at our very doors. Because this was a time of unprecedented spiritual awakening. So all the speeches that we've heard today, all the talks, all the interventions, it's all talking about this spiritual awakening going on. And this was one prophet who came to our country from Korea who's saying the same thing about the awakening. He tried to awaken specifically Christianity in a speech called The New Future of Christianity. And it was that same message, besides Madison Square Garden, you can't see this very well, was repeated at Yankee Stadium. I heard him say it there. And in front of a very large crowd in front of Washington Monument. And by the way, that message was given at Madison Square Garden, and 8 years later I found myself walking up the aisle with my wife there. And it was hard to see. My sister was there. It was hard for her to pick us out because we were one of 2,075 couples being married at the same time. But we were all international, interracial, intercultural couples. And that's also part of the revelation that Reverend Moon was going on, but I'll tell more about that later. But I don't know if you can see very well, but it says world peace through ideal families. And it turns out that ideal is a loaded word. It means you got to deal with a lot of stuff, especially if it's international, interracial, and you don't speak the same language, which we didn't. So. Oh, in the audience was my sister, Sue Kennedy, one of the organizers of Reno Birth. So the question is, what is the new future of world religions? And these teachings are all based on revelations from Jesus to Samya Moon beginning in 1936. So it's kind of a continuous revelation process. And this is kind of the core. The teaching of Samya Moon, the divine, it's called the divine principle. I noticed, David, the name of it's called the divine mission. So this is the same concept, the divine principle, the principle of the divine, affirms that the ideal of the second advent, aspired to by the founders of all the religions, be it the return of Maitreya, the awakened one, or a new Confucius, or Jesus, is realizing in the advent of one Messiah as the true parent of mankind through which the religions will be unified. So there's kind of an awakening and an expectation of, here's just putting it in a diagram form. The Buddhists have a concept of Maitreya returning. He said after several thousand years his teachings would be forgotten. And so he would need to return. Not coincidentally, that time period's now. And Confucius, there's an expectation of a new Confucius. Actually, they had the great Chinese revolution, and they threw out Confucius. They said that old style of thinking, it made us fall prey to Western predators. So they threw out Confucianism. But then, after many years of communism, it's kind of coming back. You know, there's something valuable in there. And there's an expectation, there's an actual expectation for a new Confucius. I'm just trying to give a concept how widespread these ideas are around the world. Of course, Christians are expecting the return of Christ, and many religious groups are, most religions have a redemptive figure. a man or a spirit that's destined to appear on earth at a time undisclosed to save us from this wicked place, or to teach us harmony that we've been unsuccessful in achieving. Aren't we trying to achieve harmony? That we're unsuccessful in achieving our own. And for Christians, Christ will return to smite the wicked. And Islam, it's Imam Mahdi. I have a concept. And actually, pretty soon, the head of the Islamic Northern Nevada community will be here. But I've talked to him about that. For the Jewish, there's an impending Messiah. In Hinduism, is this correct, David? The
Yeah.
Kalki avatar of Vishnu.
Yeah.
And for Buddhists, it's Maitreya. It's amazing. But when you study the world religions and you keep going, you find out there's this expectation of something in the future, a return of their central person. And so what the revelation to Reverend Moon was is that all that's one person. That's all one. I mean, it's just all different cultures are expecting the same one. So in Buddha, it's called the enlightened one. So this is just kind of putting in a diagrammatic form, but I mean, Hinduism 5,000 years ago was prophesied that. 3,000 years ago, Judaism, Buddhist, Buddhism and Confucian are very similar in time. India, China, Christians, Islam. So the ideal of the second advent aspired to by the founders of all religion. And yet what he was saying is that actually it's the end of religion and it's a time of spiritual awakening. So Reverend Moon's basic revelation was that the last days is a hopeful time when the evil world will be transformed into an ideal world under divine dominion. And I felt when I was listening to David that he was talking about the process. We were looking at the mechanism, kind of like getting under the hood of the car to see how the universe is transforming into an ideal world under the divine dominion. And I mean, there's a lot of times in our cultural lives when we thought we don't want to even talk about evil, but once you see that Sandy Hook, you see evil. There's no doubt evil is out there, darkness is out there. So there's a need to destroy evil. The evil world has to be destroyed. And actually, what we've concentrated on so far is how light workers or good people will focus to make a good world. But there is evil out there too. So we have to be more strong and more active and more. David, you said that in your presentation about how you showed it right there on the chart. How this time of spiritualism is no longer the time when you retreat from the world, but when you go out and you work together. That's the amazing thing about this gathering. People of different spiritual groups are coming out together tonight. So, the last days is a hopeful time when the evil world will be transformed. You were mentioning that too, David. I'm talking a lot about David because his last presentation there. How there's this transformation going on, this awakening. And also this resurrection of humankind, it's a progressive state where we're restored into direct dominion through stages, formation, growth, completion. And it involves each person's own portion of responsibility. I know Sue's got a box in the back, your gift to the shift. I think that's your portion of responsibility. It doesn't happen unless you do something, right? So, which reminds me, I'm going to have to write one of those. So now that I've said it right. Okay. So divine principle affirms that the ideal of the second advent, aspired to by the founders of all religions, is realized in the advent of one Messiah through which all the religions will be unified. So in one way it's the end of religion, but in another way they're all unified. actually just looking in this room, there's a lot of unification of heart here. We don't feel different. Actually, we are different. We've always thought, we didn't hang out with each other, but actually we're not. We're just finding out our heart is the same, right? So there's a unification of religions. And this is kind of a meditation, but we don't have the sound. The sound's kind of coming from the other place. So it's just kind of a spiritual picture when the lights are right and the sound is right. There's this about the spiritual world and the physical world. And David, I think you called the subtle world. The subtle world is kind of another way, what the words we use are spiritual world. The substantial world, the physical world is the not so subtle world, And so this is a concept of how the unification of religions will take place. And the spirits of the different world religions. Up on this top is a subtle world. And up on the bottom part is a physical world, us, here. But spiritual people or religious people who've died and are now in the spiritual world before us can work with people who are on earth right now. And it happens like this. Like if a Christian who died and is in the spiritual can work with a Christian on earth. I'm talking about the process of awakening. It's kind of like a diagram of how awakening takes place. So awakening takes place. The Christian in the spiritual world, now, it was so elegant how David showed that the exact point we are in time, in chronological time, in the time of cosmic events, is right at the time when there's a maximization of forces. And so this is kind of another version of that. How the Christians in the spiritual world, which didn't have that maximum opportunity, can work with Christians here who might not be motivated, but I got to do something, I feel something. And it's the same with Jewish. The Jewish who has already died, working with Jewish people on earth. Why people are being more active today. Why we're coming out and doing things together. Same with Muslim. And just anybody of conscience, any just good person, you might not have what's called a religion, but just coming from the other plane, those people who didn't have the opportunity are coming and influencing, working with people who are on earth today and do have an opportunity. So there's one other aspect that I need to explain a little bit. It's a big question. What's the origin of the universe? Finding the origin of the universe. Well, of course, most religious people, the origin of the universe is God. But this is, actually, Reverend Moon brought in, when he said it's the end of the world is at hand for religion, the old concepts, the end of old concepts. Because usually a lot of times we think of God as the masculine, but who was the earlier presenter this morning who was talking about the feminine aspect, the Venus aspect of God? So this is the time. It's a harmonious union of the dual characteristics of, actually, in the Oriental philosophy it's called Yang and Yin, but in the West we might think of it more as the feminine and masculine energies. But these two refer to the subtle and the material. But there's another concept. The origin of this universe is this God of Shimshon, and that's a new word. It's the explanation of Shimshon. It's kind of the irrepressible desire. I don't know if anybody's gone to Old Faithful to see the geyser, but nobody can stop that. At the right time, it just shoots up. Nobody can you can't put a lid on it. You just blow the lid off, right? So there's, Shimshung refers to this irrepressible desire from within God that just comes out. And it desires to love others and then to experience joy through loving others. It's just irrepressible. And then there's some new concepts of what went wrong in the universe, which I'll go more into. But what I'm trying to describe through this diagram is the origin of the universe as both male and female. And that in the Christian Bible, when it says that we're made in the image of God, actually the image of God, the most complete image of God is male and female, man and woman. And that's what it's saying here. God's masculinity and femininity is totally reflected in man and woman. And so now what was the purpose? This irrepressible desire of God to give out love and receive love back. He actually made the way man and women come together actually is through what Rev. called the absolute sexual ethics, the married love. And that's when a good marriage of a God-centered man and a God-centered woman, that's the most accurate reflection and image of God. And so the purpose why we're man and woman created is God has actually taken on a body. He's coming into the material world and he's experiencing love and giving love, and his love is expressed through his love and life and lineage. Men and women marry and procreate children and have children in a lineage. So that's the Shimshung of God. So actually the kind of the core of God, this Shimshung, this irrepressible impulse of true love, it's all in the subtle plane. And how does it become substantial? It only becomes substantial through its embodiment in a man and a woman. And that becomes the origin of our nobility as people, whether you're a man or a woman. It's the nobility and the dignity and the divinity and the absoluteness of an individual. It comes from God. We're the image of that divine. But you have to change. It's kind of like new wines in new wineskin. You have to change your concept. God's not just a man upstairs with a long white beard. It's masculine and feminine. And the expression of God's desire for love, and to express love substantially in the world, is in the man and woman in a family having children in a lineage. And so this is kind of an attempt to diagram the nature of God. But the nature of God, it's actually, the nature of God is reflected in all created things. So in all created things, whatever level you're talking about, like humankind or animals or plants or molecules, atoms or particles, they all have an internal aspect. Like plants, actually you put that seed there and they go up toward the sun. The roots go down toward the water. So they have this internal directive nature. And they have an internal aspect and they have the plant body. It's true, even the atoms and the particles of atoms have an internal directed nature, like the proton and electron that circulate around each other to make an atom. There's an internal direction and the external form. So everything is reflecting, everything is an image of God right up and down the line of creation. Not only in its internal nature and its external form, but in its masculine and feminine qualities. Everything's a reflection of God. So, masculine, feminine, this is the diagram of God. The first cause, the creator. Internal nature, external form. And all God's characteristics are manifested in the creation, this way and this way. And of course, God has principle, law, and order, and infinite energy. David's diagram really showed the energy aspect, the amazing energy aspect. But there's this internal nature, this shimjung, this true love, the character of God. That's an amazing aspect to know about. And there's a definition of that shimjung, that internal character of God, the why he creates. So the irrepressible emotional impulse of the heart that desires to feel joy through loving the object partner. So God desires to love all of his objects, his and her object partners. So, there's kind of an analogy here that the relationship of God's original internal nature and his original external form is like a complete and united body. It's kind of like ice and water and vapor is all H2O. In theory, they're dual characteristics. They're separate, but actually they're one. I mean, when you have ice or water, it's all the same, or vapor. So, trying to get back to the concept, the beginning of the presentation is, what's a new future of world religions? So we have to understand the mind and heart, the heart of the divine. And so so the expression of his heart was in his children. The highest expression was in his children. So Adam and Eve are God's children, and true love travels the shortest distance. It's kind of like lightning. You know, wherever that positive or negative charge is, that's where the lightning strikes. So if you're the golfer with a golf club, it gets the golf club in you. So true love is like lightning. From the shimjung of God, it travels the shortest distance. And it goes and gives true life to his children. And when they become enlivened, they express the same love to each other and marry and have children. So true lineage, that's the fastest way, the shortest way that true love travels through the substantial world. So in that sense, Adam is kind of like God's son, and Adam representing the first human. I mean, in the Christian scripture, Adam is called the first man. And Eve, Adam would be God's son in God's body, and Eve would be God's daughter and God's partner. Kind of like, because God has an overall masculine character in addition to his dual characteristics. So in a sense, Adam and Eve's marriage is like God's own marriage, because God, he and she, is non-substantial. So only his love can be substantially expressed in his children's marriage. So that's like his marriage to God's marriage. I keep saying their marriage. So it's the appearance of this. A perfected man and a perfected woman married together is actually the appearance of the substantial God. And so he wants a lot of appearances, not just one couple. So Adam and Eve's first love is God's first love. Oops. So until now, God couldn't express his love accurately. He couldn't express his love substantially in the body. And that's what we mean by the long journey of God's seed and lineage. It's been passing through so many people in history. And so these great religious leaders came to kind of complete God's ideal on the man's side and to teach people to become awakened. And but it never could come. They always said, we're not finished yet, we're coming back. They all said it, you know. All the religions said the same. So, with the appearance of true parents, God is actually finally able to express. If a true man and a true woman marry and form a true couple and become true parents, that's how God could finally express his internal Shimjung, his internal desire for creation. So, that was all to explain this last part of that basic statement that Reverend Moon made at Madison Square Garden, at Yankee Stadium, at Washington Monument. He basically said that the ideal of Second Advent aspired to by the founders of all religions, you know, Buddhists, the Maitreya, the Awakened One, Confucian, Christians, etc., is the advent of one Messiah as the true parent of mankind. So this is really a new concept. This is all what I call the new wine. It kind of opens your mind to a new idea. That's why he came as a prophet. So he said that's what has to happen. We have to get there. We have to have a true mother and a true father, and they have to be true parents. That's the goal. That's where we're headed. That's where also we never got to that yet. So, then, that's why, if you know him at all, you've heard about his marriage blessings, like the one I described. So, the idea was that marriage itself, that this new marriage centered on the marriage of heaven and earth. It's like when the invisible, the subtle world expresses itself in the physical world, when the idea is expressed through a man and a woman's perfected and loving marriage, then that is the marriage of heaven and earth. And that faithful believers, we believe, certainly the ones that were in these marriage blessings, that was our escape from the bondage of original sin. And so that's why we do these marriages and the rededication of marriages. And also, individuals who are not married are blessed to live pure lives centered on what's called absolute sexual ethics in preparation for future marriage. That's kind of like the path that's being expressed here. And the idea is, this is from one of Da Vinci's drawings on the top of in the Vatican, Da Vinci's beautiful painting. This is right in the center of it, but it shows we hold that original sin was the misuse of marriage love, and that brought corruption to all generations and to all of our world society. And so the whole idea is to restore that, to awaken out of that and restore that. So that's why Reverend Moon's this is his blessing in 1960. And in a way, his life was kind of simple because it was just all about marriage. It was about restoring the ideal of marriage. It was basically the take-home message in a way. So after he married, he blessed many of his earlier followers. Then that included our wedding with 2,075 couples in Madison Square Garden. So again, coming back to the new future of world religions, their unification, how does that take place? I mean, does everybody have to give up and join one church or something and wear one set of vestments? Or not that way. It's not that way. It's by changing the blood lineage of all people through divine marriage. It's kind of like grafting. So then that's why actually these are all different clergy. There's like priests and Hindu monks and all different kinds of religions here. They're not members of Reverend Moon's church, but they all receive the blessing of marriage from him. So that's what we're talking about is where religion is heading. It's headed toward divine marriage and true families of true love. That's the direction everything's going. If you think about it, we don't know the whole story about that young man from Sandy Hook, but he's troubled. If you have good families of love, it should be able to correct those kind of problems. That's a long way down the road, but you can see where we're headed. At least you can see where we're headed. Even in the United Nations building, there was a big marriage. Everyone was wearing their different national costumes there. And then there was a marriage, there's a big stadium marriages. So since then, millions of couples, most recently in March, actually Reverend Moon just died a few months ago, but just before that, he held this big wedding ceremony in the what was the Olympic Stadium in Seoul. And why I wanted to bring all this up is because I feel that this gathering here, well, it talks about the end of the world and the rebirth, the birth of a new world, an awakened world. But where is that heading? Like, where do we go? What do we do next? So actually, he prophesied something called Foundation Day 2013. And the East uses the lunar calendar, and like Chinese New Year is on a different day. So it's actually 1/13/2013. And just at the end of our last presentation, weren't you asked that question about 13? Christ was the number 13. And, 13 is often represents, and Christ is the name of a position. It means the Messiah. It's that ideal that's desired by all religions. So, but 12 disciples plus one other, plus Jesus was 13. That's the meaning of 13. That's why it's being held on the 13th day, the first month, the 13th day of 2013. In our calendar over here in the West, that happens to be 2/21/2013. And it's a great marriage day. It's God's marriage day, the marriage of heaven and earth. It's kind of the convergence of the spiritual world and physical world in unity. And it's the best time for a new marriage or rededication of existing marriages. So I just wanted to kind of advertise in advance that please look for another great global internet broadcast. So this is an amazing broadcast, even though we've had trouble syncing it up, or when we sync it, it doesn't come out exactly what we were thinking, right? But anyway, it's a great idea, and I know those things are going to be ironed out in the future. But this great global internet broadcast, something like this will happen on this day, which is actually this day by our calendars, February 21st, 2013. And it'll be like a marriage, a rededication of all people's marriages. Or if people aren't married, the blessing of individuals. So that's, I also hope to have that take place here in Reno. So I just wanted to kind of advertise that. And then, so it's kind of, we're kind of asked here in our gift to the shift, like for a personal commitment to actively engage. I'm actually part of the American Clergy Leadership Conference, and our mission has always been to rebuild the family, restore the community, and renew the nation and world. That's always been our motto. So, and even though Reverend Moon died, his youngest son, actually Dr. Youngkin has asked us to create a national revival based on God's ideal of absolute fidelity in marriage. So that's what this would be. And so we're asking for, that's my personal commitment. I know what to write on my gift to the shift now, is I personally committed to actively participate in the partnership growth and development, and let and engage in our mission to rebuild the family. That's my gift to the shift. So it didn't take the whole hour. It's kind of new stuff. It's maybe not what we expected. Also open for question. I just also wanted to say that all these sayings, I don't think we should end here, but all these presentations, as you notice, I've been trying to get every bit of all of them. I want to upload them into a site that I'm going to ask Dave Asher's kind help for. You don't know that. He's done so much, I hesitate to even ask, but I really want this, don't you think, Dave?
Sure.
By the way, every time I photoed somebody, your sign is always there, so it's good advertising. It's pretty smart, wasn't it? So, any questions?
Why the Gregorian calendar and not the Julian calendar?
Well, that's a good question. Do you know? I don't know all that stuff.
We in the West follow the Julian calendar. The Russians follow the Gregorian calendar.
Is it different?
Yes, it's different by about a week.
Oh, I
So
gotta correct
our
that.
Christmas is December 24th. 7 days later is something called Ukrainian Christmas, or
Oh.
Russian Christmas,
Oh, so we're actually the Julian calendar.
or the Julian.
Okay, thank you. Boy, I didn't know that. Yes?
Can you announce like who's gonna, where the main marriage, the blessing ceremony is gonna be held and who's going to commence that?
I don't know those full details, except that I imagine it would be in Korea, but I don't actually know that, has that been announced, or are you aware of that? That's why I said, stay posted.
Well, yeah.
Stay posted for further details. Yeah, I wish I knew. All right. Thank you.
All right, that was